Yo, what's happening guys? Welcome back to Tokimotive. Alright, so this is going to be the final episode in the L67 rebuild series. So it's going to be a long one. So far, without intro and outro, I'm looking at 28 minutes. So strap yourselves in. It's the final one. It's it. Go in the car. We actually get it running. And I'll go over the run-in process and all that sort of stuff with it. But hang on to the end because I'll go do a bit of an overview of what it ended up costing in total to actually do the rebuild. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But I'm not going to keep this for too long and I'll let you get into the video. So enjoy. So I ended up running out and grabbing new engine mounts because the engine mounts that I do have cracks and they're squished and they're shit. And as anyone with these would know, if the engine mount's flogged out, you start knocking on the subframe, get the false knock reading and pulls all the timing out of the motor. I'll track the new mounts on, throw the flex plate on, get it up in the air. Alright, well, new engine mounts are on, she's all ready to go. It's about that time that I start trying to put it in. I'm not going to go too crazy in depth on the process of trying to put it in because a lot of the stuff's behind the motor and it's going to be hard to get any sort of camera angle on it or anything like that. So I'll just get ripping into it and I'll just chuck his on a time lapse, and anything I feel that's too important, obviously I'll pause it and I'll let you know, but I'm just going to crack into it and try and get it done. Alright guys, so I don't know how much of it I actually caught because my phone died partway through somewhere, but motor's in, bolted up to the gearbox, haven't bolted anything else up yet, got to go through, put all the loom on, alternator, aircon, all that sort of shit, bolt up the extractors. Turns out the gearbox mount has completely left the chat, it's split in half, so I had to duck down, grab one of them. So after we hook up everything in the engine bay and put the driver's seat back in because it needs the driver's seat or it fucks with the airbags. Yeah, after I hook up all the stuff in the engine bay and put some fresh run-in oil in it and all the rest of it like that, I'll have to replace the fuel filter because it was leaning out majorly. After we took it for a couple of drives, which it sat for a long time, so I'm going to say it was the fuel filter was clogged because every plug was consistently white. If it's not that, it'll be fuel pump, but hopefully not. Hey, are you warm? Tip for while you're doing these, before you put the motor back in, put this on it. Put the coolant wraparound pipe on the motor before you put it in. I have not done that, and it is a fucking nightmare. Phone fell down, so I got none of it on film, but it's in. I honestly considered pulling the engine back out just to get it in. I'm never doing that again. Remember to try and put your starter motor on first before you bolt up your extractors and all that sort of stuff, or even if you can before you slot your engine mounts down, because I could not get it past the extractors, past the firewall, anything to get it in. I ended up having to unbolt the engine mounts, and jack up the gearbox, and I was just able to squeeze it between the power steering rack and the bell housing and the extractors. So you might get away with it if you've got like standard headers, but you can't get it past the extractors without jacking up the motor or something like that. So anyways, I'm going to keep going to it. Now for doing this, I've just got a ratchet on the crank and the crank bolt as well, going right to rotate the motor the way it's meant to turn, and then set it back to left so that I can use it to hold the motor while I crank that on to 45 Newton meters, or it's like 35 foot-pounds. Alright guys, I apologise about how tight of a space this is and how hard it is to see. You can see up here we've got our fuel filter. What I'm going to do is I made this when I was removing the lines off the motor. It's just a caulking gun tube, a Sikaflex one, and all I've got to do is snap it over and then push it up in under these little push lock fittings. I can push that and then it'll just let it go, and I can undo them easy. You don't have to buy any special tool. Don't know if these ones are the same as the one that's in the engine bay. They might be easier, I don't know, but I'm gonna change that and hopefully not get fuel all over me. And I've got a couple of glass jars. I'm gonna slap it in so we can see just how much shit comes out of it. I've filled her up with some Penrite running in oil, which may as well use the good stuff. Alright, so already we've got water leaks. Main one being, well, the only real one being this thing. Whatever this little insert coolant metal fucking doobie is, where I replaced the O-ring on it, but it's weeping. Yeah. So that's just constant drip. I'm hoping the one up there, just underneath the supercharger, it doesn't do the same, but I'll pull that. I'm gonna have to drop the water again, take the belts off, pull that off, and then probably put a heap of RTV around it, and hopefully that'll actually seal it. No, can you sing? Okay, well that works. Alright, so that, putting the goop, the ATV. Okay. Putting the ATV on the, that little coolant snout doobie thingy seems to have worked. Nothing's actually leaking anymore. I've done a rough bleed of the system. There's two little bleed valves on the L67. There's one directly under the supercharger snout, and there's one on that coolant wraparound pipe that's an absolute freak and I hate. So I'm going to set this up probably off to the side somewhere, and we're going to start trying to prime this thing for oil pressure. It's got no plugs in it at the moment to make it easier to turn over so we don't flatten the battery, and I've unplugged all the injectors so they won't spray in, but that lets me be able to hear and make sure the fuel pump's actually working, because we did have that lean out issue, but I think it was the filter. The stuff that came out of it was pretty disgusting. Yeah, there was a fair bit in it. I think there'd probably be more in it if I tried to actually clean it out. So I'll set this up. What we're going to look for is the oil light on the dash. While we're cranking, the oil light should be on, and by rights it should turn off once we actually build oil pressure, and then we'll put things in and try to actually start it. Okay, so it didn't actually happen on camera because it turns out I forgot to hit the record button, so kind of like it didn't try to start. Anyway, it started arcing out. The terminal started kind of welding and like burning my finger. And turns out at some point, while the alternator was off, the Bakelite piece that's meant to sit here to insulate this stud or terminal, whatever you want to call it, turns out at some point it just disappeared. It got broken because the nut and everything was still on there. There was just nothing insulating it. So I've gotten one off another alternator I've got, a spare one. So hopefully, when I hook this up and we connect him up and tap, I've learnt. Don't put the terminal on fully because it gets very hard to get off and they're very fucking hot. Positive terminal on, and I've got the negative terminal, and I'm just gonna tap it. Okay, it's not instantly arc welding itself to it. I think we're good. Fixed it. Yeah. We have oil pressure. It needs a service. You just been rebuilt. That should be plenty. Woo! Alright, shut it down. Shut it down. Time to throw some plugs in and some injectors on, and whoo! And then whoo! Back. And then there's the time that we have to explode. Fuck. The battery is flat. Alright, round 2 with a battery with charge. So did always have that cold start issue. Go again. Alright, the extinguisher on hand. I've tightened up the water pump pulley because that was loose and rattling around. So let's get the fuck out of me. Round 4. Alright, let's do it. big vacuum leak, which is like the size of my pinky, which I believe was there originally because we always had that cold start issue where it would stumble and carry on and didn't want to idle right, idling real rough. So I'm going to say that was always there. It looks like it's the line that runs from the throttle body over to the tank vent for the fuel tank. Will normally run to a charcoal canister. It runs to like a little solenoid thing behind the motor and then runs up and over to that intake, I'm guessing. But it's just the tank gases, so I've just plugged it for now. I don't have anything that goes across there. I don't think it matters if we hook it back up. So yeah, it's running real smooth. It's not getting hot. It's got no unexplained leaks, no unexplained smells, noises, anything. If the fans still haven't kicked on, it's just not climbing temperature. It's just hit a point and it's just staying there. So I'm gonna say the cooling system's working pretty good. Nice, baby. Gone through. I've just topped up the water in it. It's still, the oil was still fine and everything last night. So we're gonna do the second heat cycle on it, get it all warm, fully up to temp. We'll drop the oil and stuff like that while it's still warm. Get rid of it all because we want to get rid of that running oil, as much of it as we can because it's really thin. And obviously we want to get rid of all the shit from like all the assembly lube and all that. We want to get that out. So we're going to do another heat cycle and yeah. Alright, so second warm-up cycle seemed to go pretty well. I didn't feel very game to rev it because running oil is very thin and I don't really want to ruin anything. I didn't rev it too much, I revved it a little. Nothing sounded too out of the ordinary. So I've got our oil freshly drained. I haven't got anything to open the oil filter yet, but look. Wow, it looks like a brain. Holy shit, it looks like a fucking brain. Can you guys see that? You can see that too. Looks like a fucking brain. What the fuck is that? Shiny? Is it okay to be that shiny? Fuckload of assembly lube in there. I hope it's okay to be that shiny. Might have to phone a friend on this one. Alright guys, well I sent that video to a mate of mine, to Birdo, and he's not too excited about what he sees. I'm going to attempt, normally you would use like it's like a thing that you can cut the top off, you just tighten around and just spin it around. But I don't have one of them, so what I'm going to attempt to do is use a can opener and we're going to see if that will cut the top off. Next thing I'm going to try is a set of cutters because the can opener does not work. So, getting the center out was a little bit more effort because I accidentally squashed it in. Looks like a lot of assembly lube so far. Finger dipped in the oil. Blob of assembly lube smeared on the thing. And this is from when I rubbed my finger on the inside of the filter there. Alright, now another thing I gotta check out is the stuff in the fins of the filter itself, or the filter material. What I'm thinking is I'm just going to get a Stanley knife and cut along the edge. I can't see anything metallic actually in the filter, so it might be okay. It might just be a very excessive amount of assembly lube that's freaking us out. I don't know. I'm going to forward this on to Berto and hopefully he has a less depressing answer for me. Yeah. Well, we've chucked fresh oil in it. We're just gonna run it, see how it goes. It doesn't look too bad. Alright. Let's do it. Yep. Now for pretty much any car, and particularly cars with forced induction, what you want to do once you've been messing with things a lot, or even if you just buy one, is do a boost leak test. Particularly MAF cars, because it's going to affect the tune and it can be leaning out or all sorts of things. So I'll attach a little B-roll clip down the bottom, but what I've got here is just used a bunch of silicone joiners to get it to adapt to the right size. And I've got a PVC pipe cap from Bunnings, and I just got a tyre valve, drilled a hole that was only just able to fit the tyre valve through, and pull it through, that'll seal nice and tight. And then you just bang that in the end of a silicone joiner. We hook up the compressor with a tyre attachment on there, pressurize the system to say 5 or 10 psi higher than your the boost that it'll actually run. But my compressor's really dodgy, so it's just literally as much air as it can put in, because it'll never put in enough to hurt anything. And a spray bottle with some soapy water, and you literally just spray around everything, and anywhere you see air bubbles, that's where you've got a leak. So a nice, cheap and easy way to do a boost leak test on your system. That hose that wraps around to the boost bypass solenoid was the only leak that we actually had. You're in it. move along nicely. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix this X-Force exhaust.
You can't rev it anyway, because you rev it and I'm already going past and...
She's got a lot more go than she used to have. It was definitely struggling before. Welcome to the shitbox life. Alright guys, if you've made it through the end, first of all, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed, this rebuild series, and it's been informative and everything like that, and you guys actually got some good value out of it. But we'll quickly go over the cost of what the rebuild was, which the stuff we got from Mace, that order equaled up to $1,327. So that was all the gasket kits, that was the head bolts, it was everything for the motor, thermostat, we got the water pump, the timing kit, what else, rings, bearings, all, basically everything bar the lifters, which the lifters we got off eBay through another different store, reputable, but there were Johnson lifters and they cost us $241. That was shipped to us. And oil and filters, I can't remember exactly what each bottle of it cost, but I'm going to say about $150 before we put the oil that's in it now that we're actually driving around on and getting into it and going flat to the floor. And cleaners and assembly lube, probably about $100 spent there, give or take $20 or so. I'm not exactly sure. We got the brake cleaner in a big box for cheap, so total cost $1,818. So say for under $2,000 and a lot of work, and assuming you have at least a basic set of tools like a torque wrench and a couple of little bits and pieces, and nothing else is majorly wrong, your pistons are good and a lot of the other stuff is good, then you should get away for it for under $2,000. A lot of work, but go to a shop and that's probably going to cost you $5 grand to do that rebuild, just because the extra markup on parts and labor, all that sort of stuff. But what we did for the run-in process was, you would have seen a little bit of it, warmed it up. That first startup, we warmed it up for 20 minutes, let it get a good heat cycle in it, let it cool down completely so it was dead cold. Came back the next night, started it up again, did the same thing, played around with the revs just a little, just to make sure that things are actually moving all right. Nothing too crazy, like we didn't even go over $2,000 with it. And then we dropped the oil while it was still warm to get most of it out. Inspected the filter, made sure there was no chunks or metallic stuff. And then we chucked another lot of oil in, ran it, heat cycled it, dropped that oil again, inspected it, put that oil back in, ran around for a couple of weeks, and then dropped that out and then put in the final oil we were going to run, which I recommend you go on the thicker end of what's recommended for the car and go a full synthetic. If you're going to the point of rebuilding it, just go synthetic from the start. You're going to get a lot better life out of your motor. Thick, synthetic, and go high quality. You should get easily get another 300 odd thousand out of the motor as long as you've done it right. I'm happy with how it turned out, and the car's driving well, and she's loving it, so all good in the end. But there may be the occasional little video pop up of it here and there. I filmed replacing the window mech. I'll probably throw that up at some point, just a little short one, because the version of that I've seen has been, the video's actually broken midway through. But anyways, the L67 stuff is going to grind to a screaming halt pretty well, and I'm going back to my normal Nissan content, messing around with the wagon, and I want to start the 33 build and do more track days and all that sort of stuff now that I'm finished rebuilding this and I'm finished the long editing process that it takes for informative videos like this one and the rest of this series. Just because it's going into so much, I have to go through and edit a lot of talking and work. They've been very time-consuming videos to edit. But anyways, there may be the occasional video pop up, but it's going back to the regularly scheduled program. But made it through the end. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff if you want to see more of the other stuff I'm going to do and just want to support the channel. Thank you guys, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.